so these are your 11.2 notes. Make sure you title them Apply Transformations to Data. For this first example, we're going to be looking at astronauts, and we're considering their weight in pounds on Earth without their spacesuits. So the data points we're looking at are 142, 150, you guys can read the rest. Now, to find the mean, median, mode, range, and standard deviation, we're going to start by entering this data into our calculator. You probably have leftover data in your calculator, so to get here you would hit your stats button, and then, let's see, I'll move that up so you can see it. So you're going to hit your stat button, and then enter and edit, just like we've been doing. Now, I've noticed that some of you guys have been, instead of clearing your list, so hitting the clear button, and then enter, instead you've put your cursor up here and you've been using the delete key. Now, if you do that, if you hit delete, and then enter, oh, look at that, it deleted my L1. And if I hit delete again, oh, there goes my L2. L2 no longer exists, which is problematic. So to get those back, what you're gonna do is hit the following keystrokes. You're gonna hit the second button, and then you're gonna hit the plus key, and then 7 for reset, 1 for all RAM, and 2 for reset. So you're going to hit second plus 712 to clear your RAM. Okay. Once you do that, if you go back to the stat and edit, then your L1 and your L2 will come back. Because what it does is sends your calculator back to sort of its factory default. So I'm going to add my data points in now. So 142, 150, 155, 156, 160, 160, 166, and 175. Then I'm going to hit stat, go over to calc, and hit enter. Enter, enter, enter. Okay. Recall that the first number we get here, this X bar, is our mean, or our average. So our average is 158. Our median, to get it, you have to use the down arrow and scroll down. And it tells you the median is also 158. The mode is the number that occurs most. So for that, I just look at the list, and I see 160 occurs twice. So my mode is 160. The range is your largest number minus your smallest number. So 175 minus 142 is a range of 33. And your standard deviation, shoot, I just lost it. I'm going to hit stat, calc, one of our stats, go back to that list. The standard deviation is this little circle with the line. It's called sigma. And so my standard deviation for this is 9.3. Okay. Now, just like in class, on our in-class problems, we're going to have a situation where we're going to take our data points and we're going to change all of them. So if the astronaut spacesuits weighed 250 pounds on Earth, then each one of the astronauts, when they put their spacesuit on, are going to weigh more. So for instance, the first astronaut plus his spacesuit would put us at, what, 3... Is that going to be 92, I think? I'm just going to double check that on my calculator. 142 plus 250, sure enough, is 392. And then if the second astronaut put on his spacesuit, then 150 plus 250 gives us 400. And 155 plus 250 gives us 405. And absolutely, you could go through and just by hand add 250 onto each one of these numbers. However, this is kind of annoying, and so I wanted to show you guys a cool trick that you can do on your graphing calculator that will save you a little bit of time, especially on problems like this. So on your calculator, you're going to go back into your stat menu, you're going to hit enter on edit, and you're going to go over to list 2. Now when you go over, go up 1 so that your cursor is up at the L2, and here, if you guys look down at your calculator, you're going to see they're either going to be blue or maybe yellow depending on what color your second key is. Let me zoom this in just a little bit so you can see it better. So right above the 1 button, do you guys see the L1 right here? We're going to access that by hitting second and then the 1 key. So on my calculator, I'm going to hit second and then the 1 key. And you can see that it typed in L1 right here. What it's saying now is that whatever is in my list is now going to be in list 2. and then I'm going to add 250 to each element in L1. So if I hit enter now, list 2 will give me all of my numbers plus 250. Notice, if I zoom in again so you guys can actually see it, that 142 plus 250 is 392. 150 plus 250 is 400. These are the same numbers that we were getting when we were doing it by hand, but instead of doing it by hand, it's one set of keystrokes. So one more time. If you had a blank L2, you'd put your cursor up in L2, you'd hit second and 1 for L1, plus 250, and you'd hit enter. Now I'm going to hit stat again, just like I normally do. I'm going to go over to calc, but this time the data that I want to calculate on is in list 2. So list 2, if I want to access that, is right above the 2 key. So I'm going to hit second and then the 2 key to get L2 to be there. And then I hit calculate. And now it's giving me the mean and all of this information based on list 2. So I can type in, let's see, 408 for the mean. The median is down below, so the median is also 408. The mode, I would have to get from my stat list. I'll go back to it in a second. The standard deviation I can get. That's 9.3. And then the range I'm going to have to get from my list. So I'm going to go back to stat, edit, and now I can use my list to find my mode. My mode looks like it's 410 because 410 is repeated twice. And let's see, my biggest number is 425. And my smallest number is 392. So if I quit out of this, 425 minus 392 is 33. Okay. So now we've got these numbers, and the whole point of this lesson is to notice what changes and what doesn't change. So if you guys are looking here, well, the mean changed. It went from 158 to 408. The median also changed. The mode changed. So all three of those numbers changed. They all went up. The range, however, if you notice, stayed the same, and the standard deviation stayed the same, which is kind of interesting. So these guys stayed the same, and these guys all changed. Now, it's important to ask yourself, how much did they change by? What was this increment of change? And so if on my calculator, I look at 408 minus 158, I get 250. So the mean and the median both went up by 250. Let's see if that's the same for the mode. So the mode was 410, and before it was 160, and sure enough, it also changed by 250. So these all changed by going up 250. Now, this shouldn't come as too much of a shock because all we did to this data set was add 250 onto everybody's weight, and so that's where change we're seeing in these measures of center, because mean, median, and mode tell us where the middle are. Whereas the measures of spread, the one numbers range and standard deviation that tell us how spread out the data are, those stayed the same because the data didn't get any more spread out. It's the same data, we just added the same amount to each thing. So a way to see this is if we look at our data on a number line, and yes, I do want you to actually draw out and copy down these number lines, please. If we look at our original data, 142, 150 on a number line, okay, and it's easy to see the mode this way, and we look at our new data, now granted I did shift this number line, but if you look, the data didn't change in respect to each point. Like they're still spread out in the same way. And so our, let's see, mean for the first data set was 158. So I'm going to draw a little arrow in here. So this guy right here, 158, is our mean and our median. And on our new data set, after we added 250 to each thing, our new mean and new median were 408, which is right here. So this is our new mean and new median. Notice that those didn't change at all, in respect to the data at least. The middle of the data is still where the middle of the data should be, even though we've added 250 to everything. And then our mode was 410. Well, yep, that's still the mode on both of them. The range is the smallest number to the biggest number, so the range obviously stayed the same for both of them because we added 250 onto everything. And then last but not least, recall that the standard deviation tells us how closely together the data points are clumped around the mean. In this case, our standard deviation for both data sets was 9.3. That was our sigma. And so if you go from the mean, from the middle, and you go about 9 units, a little bit more than 9 units in each direction. So let's see, each one of these are 2s. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So if I go 9 units in this direction, and 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, so not quite 10, 9 units in this direction. What that says is that this captures most of our data points. And indeed, most of our data points fall in that like standard deviation away from the mean. And then in the same situation here, since our standard deviation is 9.3, it's the same distance going in this direction. And again, our standard deviation captures most of our data points, one standard deviation away from the mean. All right, that's it for notes for tonight. Make sure that you get everything written down and actually listen to it once through. It's usually a good idea. And I will see you guys tomorrow in class. Thanks.